Hello there, Vogue. I'm going to the gala but right now I'm not there. I'm on the ice and I'm really excited. So, I'll see you guys there. Ma, picture this. You spend your entire childhood on ice. Early mornings, frozen rinks, falling down, and getting back up thousands of times. Then one day you walk into the biggest sporting event on the planet and you don't just compete, you dominate. You win gold, multiple golds, and suddenly the entire country knows your name. That is exactly what happened to Alysa Liu. And trust me, her story doesn't stop at the Olympics. Because just a few weeks after becoming America's newest sports sweetheart, this 20-year-old figure skater walked into one of the most glamorous nights in the entire world, the Met Gala, and somehow managed to steal that show, too. So, today we're breaking down everything. The Olympic performance that changed her life, the stunning Met Gala moment that had everyone talking, and the behind-the-scenes details that most people completely missed. If you've been sleeping on Alysa Liu, that stops right now. Let's go back to Milan Cortina, the 2026 Winter Olympics. If you watched any of the figure skating coverage during those games, you already know what went down. Alysa Liu showed up and performed at a level that was almost unfair to watch. The kind of skating that makes you forget to breathe. The kind of routine where the crowd goes quiet for a second because they can't quite believe what they just saw. She didn't just compete at those Olympics. She became the face of them. Multiple gold medals, multiple unforgettable moments, and a country that was desperately looking for a new athletic hero suddenly found exactly who they were looking for. Now, here's the thing about moments like that. When an athlete peaks at the Olympics, there's usually a pattern. Big win, some press tours, maybe a few endorsement deals, and then things quiet down. The world moves on pretty fast. But Alysa Liu is not following that pattern at all. Not even close. Because right after becoming an Olympic champion, she started building something bigger and the fashion world noticed before most people did. Louis Vuitton, one of the most iconic luxury brands on the entire planet, came knocking and they didn't just want to dress her for one event. They made her an official ambassador for the brand. Think about what that means for a 20-year-old figure skater from California. Louis Vuitton doesn't hand that title out to just anyone. They pick people who represent something, people who carry a certain energy, people who feel like the future. And clearly when they looked at Alysa Liu, that's exactly what they saw. So when the Met Gala came around this year, it was never a question of whether Alysa would be there. The question was how she was going to show up. And she answered that question in the most spectacular way possible. She walked that red carpet in a custom Louis Vuitton dress featuring these incredible red ruffles that immediately caught every camera in the room. In a sea of celebrities and athletes who spend months preparing for this exact moment, Alysa Liu held her own completely, more than held her own. Honestly, she was one of the most talked about looks of the entire night. Style outlets were writing about her. Fashion accounts were reposting her. The general public, people who hadn't even watched the Olympics, were suddenly asking, "Who is that?" But here's what made her Met Gala moment even more special than just the dress. It was what she did for her fans afterward. Most celebrities at an event like the Met Gala keep things pretty locked down. You get the professional photos, the polished red carpet shots, and that's it. The behind-the-scenes stuff stays behind the scenes. But Alysa went to her Instagram and gave her followers something completely different. She took them inside the entire process. The hair and makeup sessions, the jewelry selection, the quiet moments before walking into one of the biggest nights of her career. Multiple snapshots in her dress showing the real texture and detail of the Louis Vuitton design up close. It sounds simple, but for an athlete of her profile, that kind of access is genuinely rare. She didn't have to do that. She could have just posted the glamour shots and called it a day. But she chose to bring her community with her, and that says a lot about who she is as a person. And speaking of her community, let's talk about these numbers for a second because they are wild. Alysa Liu currently has over 8.3 million followers on Instagram alone. And that doesn't even count her audience across her other platforms. For a figure skater, a sport that outside of Olympic years doesn't always dominate the mainstream sports conversation, those numbers are extraordinary. She has crossed over into a completely different level of celebrity and she's done it almost overnight. She actually talked about that at the Met Gala itself. She joked that everywhere she goes now, people recognize her. She said, "Imagine one day just suddenly everyone knows who you are." And you could hear in the way she said it that it's still surreal to her. She's 20 years old. A year ago, most of the country couldn't have picked her out of a lineup. Now she walks into a room and heads turn. That is a massive adjustment for any human being to make, and she's doing it all in real time in public. The athletes she shared the Met Gala spotlight with were no small names either. Venus Williams was a co-host of the evening. Steph Curry was there. Joe Burrow, Naomi Osaka. These are established globally recognized superstars. And Alysa Liu was right there among them. Not as a newcomer to be tolerated, but as a genuine presence commanding her own moment. Now, one more layer to the story that shows just how human and relatable she is beneath all the glamour. Back in March, Alysa revealed that she has legitimate Olympic crushes on some of her fellow American athletes. She mentioned gymnasts Sunny Lee and Lauren Hernandez, as well as hockey gold medalist Hilary Knight. Such a refreshingly honest thing to admit when you're at her level of fame. She's fangirling over other athletes the same way the rest of us do, except she happened to share a stage with some of them at the Olympics. That's the thing about Alysa Liu that keeps drawing people in. She's achieved something genuinely extraordinary. 2 gold medals, a Louis Vuitton ambassadorship, a Met Gala moment that people are still talking about. And yet, she still feels like someone you could have a real conversation with. She doesn't perform being relatable. She just is. And in 2026, when so much of celebrity culture feels manufactured and calculated, that kind of authenticity is everything. So, what happens next for Alysa Liu? Honestly, the ceiling feels completely unlimited right now. She's at the intersection of elite sport, high fashion, and digital influence. 3 worlds that don't often overlap the way they do for her. She's young enough that there are likely more Olympics ahead of her if she chooses to keep competing. She has a brand partnership that's only going to grow. She has an audience that's deeply loyal and still expanding. The 2026 Winter Olympics gave America a hero to rally around on the ice. The Met Gala showed the world that this story extends far beyond the rink. And everything between those 2 moments, the ambassadorship, the Instagram access, the honest interviews has built something that very few athletes manage to build this early in their careers. Alysa Liu isn't just an Olympic champion. She isn't just a fashion icon. She's becoming something harder to define and more powerful than either of those things. She's becoming a cultural force. And if you're not paying attention to what she does next, you're going to want to start.